The vibration of the phone against the granite kitchen island at 6 a.m. shattered the quiet of the home I owned. I was sitting with my first cup of black coffee, watching the early morning fog roll across the front lawn. I reached for the screen, expecting a generic weather alert. Instead, it was a text from my daughter-in-law, Chloe. "We've made our decision. You're not going to Alaska. My mom wants just family." I stared at the glowing letters. I did not drop my mug. I did not burst into tears. I simply read the words again, letting the cold reality of the situation wash over me. The Alaska cruise was not just a vacation. It was the final wish of my late husband, Arthur. Before he passed away 2 years ago, he made me promise I would finally see the glaciers. I had spent $55,000 of my own savings to book a luxury family suite. I wanted to share Arthur's dream with my son Mark and his wife. I even agreed to pay for Chloe's parents to come along, hoping to build a better relationship. This house, the very roof over their heads, belonged to me. I had invited Mark and Chloe to move in temporarily so they could save for their own place. Instead, they had taken over my space, filling the driveway with new cars and treating me like a live-in housekeeper. "My mom wants just family," the text read. I was the one who birthed Mark. I was the one who funded the entire journey. Yet in Chloe's eyes, I was merely the wallet easily discarded when I was no longer convenient. A sharp, clear energy replaced the initial shock in my chest. I set my phone face down on the counter. The house was dead silent, save for the hum of the refrigerator. They had every opportunity to be decent, grateful people. They chose a different path. And now they were about to learn exactly who they were dealing with. I walked into the living room, my slippers silent against the hardwood floor. Chloe's expensive designer coats were thrown carelessly over the armchairs. Mark's gaming console dominated the main television. They had lived here rent-free for 18 months, completely disrupting my peaceful retirement. I picked up the family iPad resting on the coffee table. Chloe often used it and rarely logged out of her accounts. I opened the web browser and navigated to the cruise line's portal. My heart beat in a slow, steady rhythm. I clicked on the reservation tab, my eyes scanning the passenger manifest. My name was gone. In the slot where Louise Franklin should have been, I saw the name of Chloe's younger sister. Chloe had used the confirmation number I trusted her with to log in and modify the passenger details. She surgically removed me from my own trip, swapping me out, so her entire side of the family could enjoy a $55,000 luxury vacation on my dime. I set the iPad down exactly where I found it. Many mothers might have marched upstairs, banged on the bedroom door, and demanded an explanation. Many would have cried, begging their son to intervene. I did none of those things. I knew exactly who Mark was: a passive, conflict-avoidant man who nodded along to whatever his wife demanded just to keep the peace. Arthur had worked construction for 40 years, saving every spare dollar for our retirement. I had managed our finances with a tight grip, ensuring we always had a safety net. Chloe and Mark thought I was just a tired old widow out of touch with the modern world and easy to walk all over. They mistook my kindness for weakness. They assumed the money was already spent and out of my control. They were wrong. I walked back to the kitchen, poured myself another cup of coffee, and waited for them to wake up. At 8 a.m., the heavy footsteps of my son echoed on the stairs. Mark walked into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes, followed closely by Chloe, who was already dressed in her expensive workout gear. The smell of the bacon I was cooking filled the room. Chloe grabbed an apple from the bowl. She looked at me completely unapologetic, waiting for an outburst. Mark avoided my gaze, entirely staring hard at the floor tiles. "I saw your text," I stated, casually flipping a piece of bacon in the pan. Chloe sighed, adopting a tone usually reserved for placating a toddler. "Look, Louise, it's just logistics. My mom feels a little awkward around you, and my sister really needs a break from work. We figured since you're older, the cold weather might be too hard on your joints anyway. It's better this way. I turned off the stove. I looked at my son. And you agree with this, Mark? Mark shifted his weight, refusing to meet my eyes. Mom, you know how stressful it's been. Chloe's family just wants some bonding time. We'll bring you back a souvenir, I promise. He actually believed a cheap magnet would make up for erasing me from his father's final wish. I did not yell. I did not remind them that I paid for every single ticket. Doing so would only give them a chance to argue to make me out to be the unreasonable one. I understand, I replied, my voice perfectly even. Chloe smirked clearly, relieved that I was rolling over so easily. Thanks for being so chill about it, Louise. Seriously, it takes a lot of maturity to step back. I plated the bacon and handed it to Mark. Enjoy your breakfast. You have a lot of packing to do. I walked out of the kitchen, leaving them completely oblivious. They thought they had won. They had no idea I was already dismantling the ground they stood on. The moment Mark and Chloe's cars pulled out of the driveway heading to their offices, I sat down at my desk. I opened my personal ledger and pulled out the premium credit card I had used to book the trip. I didn't need complicated legal advice. I didn't need to threaten anyone. I just needed to exercise my basic consumer rights. I dialed the priority customer service line for the cruise company. A cheerful representative answered after 2 rings. Hello, my name is Louise Franklin. I need to make a major adjustment to my booking, I informed her smoothly. Of course, Mrs. Franklin. I see your reservation here for the 6-person luxury suite. How can I assist you? I need to cancel the entire reservation, I instructed, immediately. Please process the full refund back to the original payment method. The agent paused, clicking her keyboard. Mrs. Franklin. You are within the cancellation window to receive a full refund, but are you sure the departure is in exactly 4 days? I am absolutely sure. Understood. The $55,000 will be credited back to your card within 48 hours. The entire booking is now void. I hung up the phone. The money was back where it belonged. The grand family vacation Chloe had bragged about to all her friends simply ceased to exist. I picked up the phone again and called a different, equally luxurious cruise line. I booked a single premium balcony room for myself, departing from the same port on the exact same day. I paid in full. There would be no extra passengers. There would be no in-laws. Just me, the ocean, and Arthur's memory. The foundation of their perfect plan was now entirely gone, and they were still busy picking out their vacation outfits, completely blind to the reality approaching them. With the trip handled, I turned my attention to my immediate surroundings. For a 1.5 years, I had allowed Mark and Chloe to treat my home like a free storage facility and hotel. It was time to reestablish the boundaries of my own property. I started in the living room. I gathered Chloe's 12 pairs of designer shoes scattered by the front door and dropped them into a large cardboard box. I unplugged Mark's massive gaming setup from the dining room, wrapped the cords neatly, and carried the monitors and console out to the dusty shelves in the garage. I collected their heavy winter coats, their mail, and their excessive beauty products from the downstairs bathroom. Everything went into boxes, stacked unceremoniously between the lawnmower and the spare tires. Next, I logged into my internet provider's app. I changed the Wi-Fi network name and generated a new complex password. Finally, I emptied the refrigerator of the expensive specialty groceries I routinely bought for them, with my own money tossing anything that wasn't mine into the garbage. When Mark and Chloe returned from work that evening, the house was immaculate and completely empty of their presence. "Where is the TV?" Mark shouted from the dining room. "Where are my running shoes?" Chloe demanded, stomping into the kitchen. I sat in my armchair reading a novel. "I did some tidying up," I answered calmly, turning a page. "Your personal items are in the garage." The common areas are for common use again. Chloe's face flushed red with anger. You can't just touch my things. And the Wi-Fi isn't working. The router needed a reset, I replied softly, not looking up from my book. I'm sure you both have unlimited data on your phones. You'll be fine. They stormed out to the garage, muttering under their breath about my sudden difficult behavior. They thought it was a petty tantrum. They didn't realize it was an eviction notice. The next morning, I made a phone call I had been contemplating for months. The 4-bedroom house was entirely too large for a widow, and keeping it only enabled my son's dependency. I dialed the number of a local real estate investor, a man who frequently left "We Buy Houses Cash" flyers in my mailbox. His name was David, and he arrived at noon while Mark and Chloe were out buying last-minute supplies for their imaginary trip. David walked through the rooms, noting the updated kitchen and the solid foundation Arthur had meticulously maintained. It's a beautiful property, Mrs. Franklin. You own it free and clear, fully paid off. The deed is strictly in my name. I confirmed, handing him the property tax records. I can offer you a cash buyout. It's slightly below market value, but there are no inspections, no realtor fees, and we can close extremely fast. As is condition. How fast? I asked. David checked his calendar. If we rush the title search, we can close and transfer possession in 3 days. 3 days. The exact morning Mark and Chloe were scheduled to leave for the airport. We have a deal, I agreed, shaking his hand. We sat at my dining table and filled out the preliminary paperwork. I required no lawyers, no drawn-out negotiations. It was a simple, legal transaction between 2 willing parties. The only condition I gave David was that his cleanup crew could arrive at exactly 1:00 p.m. on Friday to take full possession and begin their renovations. I spent the rest of the afternoon sorting through my own belongings. I packed 2 suitcases with my clothes, gathered my important documents, and carefully wrapped Arthur's wooden urn. The heavy burden of the house and the ungrateful children living inside it lifted off my shoulders. I was finally taking my life back. Friday morning arrived with clear, sunny skies. The atmosphere in the house was buzzing with Mark and Chloe's arrogant excitement. They dragged 4 oversized, heavy suitcases down the wooden stairs, the wheels thumping loudly against the steps. Chloe was wearing a brand-new silk blouse and oversized sunglasses. She looked around the pristine living room, her nose wrinkled in mild disgust. "Louise, make sure you water my orchids in the upstairs window," Chloe ordered, snapping her fingers to get my attention. "And the guest bathroom needs a deep clean before we get back next week. Don't just sit around watching TV all day." Mark checked his phone, completely ignoring the disrespectful way his wife spoke to his mother. "The Uber XL is here. My in-laws are already at the airport." I stood by the front door, my hands resting neatly in the pockets of my cardigan. I looked at the son I had raised. He had every chance to stand up for me to honor his father's memory, or to simply be a decent human being. He chose his own comfort instead. "Have exactly the trip you deserve." I smiled, my voice carrying a strange, peaceful warmth. Yeah. "See you in a week, Mom," Mark muttered, dragging the last bag out the door. They climbed into the black SUV. Chloe didn't even bother to look back. I watched the car pull away, disappearing down the suburban street. The moment they were out of sight, I locked the front door. I walked into the kitchen, picked up the set of spare house keys Mark and Chloe kept on the counter, and tossed them into the trash can. I grabbed my 2 suitcases and Arthur's urn, carrying them out to my sedan parked in the back. The timeline was precise. The demolition of their entitled world was officially underway. I was 30 miles away, sitting in the lobby of the title company finalizing the cash sale when my phone screen lit up. It was 11:45 a.m. Mark and Chloe were supposed to be checking in at the premium terminal. The screen flashed, "Incoming call, Mark." I silenced it, sliding the phone into my purse. I could perfectly picture the scene at the airport. Chloe and Mark walking confidently up to the VIP check-in desk, flanked by Chloe's parents, who were undoubtedly bragging about their free luxury vacation. Chloe would hand over their passports, wearing that smug, entitled smile. The ticketing agent would type their information into the system frown and call over a supervisor. "I'm sorry, ma'am. This entire reservation was canceled on Monday. There are no tickets under this name." My phone vibrated again. Incoming call. Chloe. Then a text message popped up, Louise. "The airline system is glitching. They say the tickets are canceled. Answer your phone right now. We need your credit card to fix this." I didn't reply. I signed the final document, pushed the paper across the mahogany desk, and accepted the certified cashier's check from David. Another text arrived this time from Mark. "Mom, Chloe's parents are furious. The agent said, you canceled the booking." What is going on? Please pick up. The panic in his digital words was palpable. The grand illusion they had built for Chloe's family was collapsing in the middle of a crowded airport. They were standing there with thousands of dollars in new luggage zero tickets and a massive audience witnessing their humiliation. I felt a profound sense of relief. I owed them nothing. I stood up, shook David's hand, and walked out to my car. My own ship was waiting. I drove back to the house one last time. It was 12:45 p.m. David's work trucks were already pulling into the driveway. I handed David the main set of keys. "It's all yours. As we agreed, the house is empty of my possessions. Whatever is left in the garage belongs to the previous tenants. They no longer have a right to be here." David, a seasoned investor who had seen every type of family drama, simply nodded. "Understood, Mrs. Franklin. We start demo on the interior today. I'll have my guys move all those boxes in the garage out to the curb. Trash pickup is tomorrow anyway." I stood on the sidewalk and watched as 3 workers began hauling Mark's expensive gaming monitors, Chloe's designer shoes, and their heavy winter coats out to the edge of the driveway. They stacked the boxes neatly near the fire hydrant. The locks on the front door were being drilled out and replaced with heavy-duty construction deadbolts. My phone was still vibrating relentlessly in my purse. Over 30 missed calls. I finally pulled it out, blocked Mark's number, blocked Chloe's number, and blocked her mother's number, just to be thorough. I looked at the house where I had spent 3 decades of my life. It was just wood, brick, and glass. The memories of Arthur were not in those walls. They were with me sitting safely in the passenger seat of my car. I got behind the wheel, started the engine, and drove away without glancing in the rearview mirror. Mark and Chloe's problems were no longer my responsibility. They wanted just family for their trip, and now they had plenty of time to spend together on the sidewalk. 3 hours later, I stood on the private balcony of my premium suite. The massive ocean liner cut through the deep, icy blue waters of the Pacific, the salty wind rushing past my face. Before switching my phone to airplane mode for the rest of the journey, I sat on the lounge chair to clean up my digital life. I opened the smart home app to transfer the doorbell camera access to David, the new owner. But just as my thumb hovered over the delete account button, a live motion notification popped up on the screen. I couldn't help myself. I tapped it. Through the fisheye lens of the camera, I saw the exact moment reality crashed down on them. A yellow taxi was pulling away from the curb. Mark and Chloe stood on the sidewalk surrounded by their 4 massive suitcases. Behind them, David's crew was tossing torn drywall into a large metal dumpster. And right there next to a fire hydrant were the hastily packed boxes of Chloe's designer shoes and Mark's gaming gear. Even without audio, the scene was crystal clear. Chloe was waving her arms frantically, her face red, screaming at my son. Mark just stood there, his shoulders slumped, staring blankly at the heavy-duty construction padlock on what used to be his free front door. He pulled out his phone, likely trying to call me for the 50th time, but my number was already gone. They had no trip. They had no free house. They had no access to my bank accounts. I watched them for exactly 10 seconds. I felt no guilt. I felt no urge to save them. I simply pressed delete, uninstalled the app, and powered off my phone completely. The cord was permanently cut. I wrapped my thick wool coat tighter around my shoulders, stepped back up to the railing, and reached into my bag to pull out the small, polished wooden urn. The majestic snow-capped mountains of the northern coast were just beginning to pierce through the horizon, glowing under the afternoon sun. "We made it, Arthur." I whispered to the wind, my voice steady and full of peace. For decades, I believed that being a good mother meant endless sacrifice. I thought love meant quietly enduring disrespect just to keep the family together. But enabling greed isn't love. It's a prison. True peace requires ironclad boundaries. Sometimes the greatest lesson you can give your entitled children is stepping aside and letting them face the harsh, unshielded consequences of their own choices. I breathed in the crisp, freezing Alaskan air, feeling lighter than I had in years. I wasn't an ATM. I wasn't a live-in maid. I was Louise Franklin, a woman who had finally taken back the keys to her own life, and my real journey was just beginning.